Have you considered listing your home in the next 6 months to a year, but maybe you're asking yourself the question, how do I know if now is a great time for me to list my home or apartment? Or you've already made the decision to list your apartment, but you're waiting for the springtime to get the most amount of traffic for your listing. In this video, I'm gonna explain to you what exactly a seller's market is and why now might be a better time than ever for you to get the most amount on the sale of your asset. My name is Everett Smith, and I'm here with Triple Mint Real Estate, talking to you a little bit more about the seller's market and what's really going on right now in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and why you should consider selling if you haven't already. So a lot of times during this time of the year, when I contact people to ask them what their plans are with their real estate goals, usually I get answers like, oh yeah, we might be considering listing our apartment, but we would rather wait until after the holidays. Or something along the lines of, yeah, we do want to list, but we're probably waiting until the springtime where there's a little bit more traffic. Very valid points. Usually when people are waiting for after the holidays, they might be having family over or they want to avoid bringing people in their home, especially with COVID. And then the other factor, you want to list your home obviously when there are people actually out there buying. At the end of the day, it's ultimately your decision, as it is with any real estate decision. But if you're looking to make the most back on your investment in the shortest amount of time possible, you should consider reaching out to your agent and asking a question like, is now a good time for me to sell my apartment or home? In general, when I'm asked this question, I believe the answer is usually based on the situation of the client and what their needs are and why they're making this decision in the first place. For example, if you live in a one-bedroom with your spouse and you just had a kid, you may want to consider upgrading so you can get that two-bedroom to have that extra space. Let's say you've already decided that these life factors are affecting you to the point where you do need to actually sell your apartment, and after hearing this, maybe you want to do something sooner rather than later. I would say again, text me. I'm ready at 646-653-4764. I will text you back to set up an appointment where we can go over the life factors affecting you and see if we can't get you set up to list your home sooner rather than later. But if you're really insistent on looking at the market factors and seeing how they might play a role in your decision-making process, let's take a look at these 4 factors that can be observed right now in the marketplace, and that could be the decision-making factors that help you realize that now is a better time than ever to sell your apartment. First of all, let's define what a seller's market is so that we know what the mark is to see what we're looking for. A seller's market is basically the ideal time for a seller to put their home on the market to get the highest price possible in the shortest amount of time possible. Generally speaking, in real estate, if you have something listed for a very long time, it could very much affect the perceived value of your home. Usually, if you're on the market for a very long time, the customers coming to view the apartment or home might generally think that there's something wrong with it, and that's the reason why it's sat on the market for so long. In some cases, there might very well be something wrong with the home or apartment, and that's why it's been on the market for that long. But you don't ever want to put yourself in that position intentionally, especially when you're losing money or not making as much as you possibly thought you could when you're selling your home. So these first 2 things that are really affecting the market right now can really be observed. And if you check out videos like UrbanDigs, I'm gonna just throw my plug out there for them. They are giving awesome Brooklyn and Manhattan information on the weekly basis. They are not paying me to say this, but I just wanted to say thank you if you guys see this video. The videos you guys make rock and give me actionable and great information, and is the reason why I'm actually making this video right now. Just number 1 is the fact that inventory levels are super low. Inventory, the amount of homes listed for sale right now, is super low across the board. And we've really been seeing that heavily hit us here in Brooklyn as more and more inventory either goes into contract or is delisted, especially now at the end of the year, and not a lot of people are coming to market. Let's make this super specific and super relatable. If you are looking for a 2-bedroom right now, and maybe you've already seen all of your options, usually one thing that you can look forward to is seeing new inventory, new people list their homes on a weekly basis. However, we have not been seeing nearly as much of that. With that being said, it is really difficult, if you're a buyer, to see new apartment. Less inventory means that there's going to be more competition amongst buyers to get what you have if you have something that they really, really want. And how can you tell if you have something that someone really, really wants? That's when we start looking at the amount of contracts signed, which I'm gonna get to in 1 second. Another thing that is super important to mention, especially around this time of year, with the low inventory, it does mean that there's higher intent, especially around the holiday season. No one really wants to move this time of year, right? If you can avoid it at any cost, right? You're spending money on holiday presents, this, that, and the other. Maybe you have some other things that you're trying to wrap up before the end of the year. It's really not an ideal time for anyone to make this decision. But if you are out there right now and you are making this decision, usually it means that you have high intent. Which as a seller, that's great for you, because that means that the buyer that walks into your home, they are thinking that I am probably, if I like this and everything looks good, I'm probably gonna make a move on this. I'm probably gonna submit an offer, and I'm probably gonna see what happens next. And that is great for you as a seller, because it means that when you do list your home, you're gonna be able to take advantage of that traffic and make the most of every single opportunity that comes your way. This is something that is pretty cyclical and can be seen year over year around the holiday season. So generally speaking, you could say that the holiday time is a great time to list your apartment, because you will have ultimately less competition with other sellers trying to list their homes or apartments. And that for you is great, because more eyes on your property. Now, the other thing that I want to mention along those lines is that contracts being signed, and this is number 2, contracts being signed on the week-to-week basis is still going strong. From the weeks of December, we have seen a consistent level, especially in Brooklyn, of contracts being signed on the week-to-week basis. What does that mean? It means that people are still making those decisions, and even though the inventory is consistently and continuously dropping on the week-to-week basis, contracts being signed is also still staying constant, which means they just need the opportunities to find what they want, and they will be willing and ready to move forward. If that doesn't scream high intent and overlap with my last point, I don't know how else to explain it to you. This does not necessarily mean that you can list your home for whatever price that you want and potentially get it because there's nothing else on the market like it. While supply and demand are definitely forces that may play into the sale of your home, it's still a great idea always to price your home at a level that is in line with the other properties that have been selling. So those are more current factors that we are experiencing right now. Like if you pull up a chart, you'll definitely be able to see those factors. But what about something a little bit more intangible that we are observing, but maybe not experiencing quite yet, but most likely will in the future if things go the way they think we're actually gonna go? The first one I'm talking about is the effects of inflation. We have already started to see inflation and the effects that they play on our wallets and the prices. Some real estate professionals and economists are saying that real estate itself is going to appreciate, or they use the word appreciation, but I really think it means inflation in this case. But we're gonna see prices increase to about 16% in the next year. Now, what does that mean? If you're saying, Everett, well, if real estate prices are increasing, well, how does that make it effective for me to list right now? This is more of a logical thing, and you can disagree with me or agree with me, but here's what's going to happen at the end of the day if inflation continues to be a problem. Basically, as inflation rates go up, people are able to afford less and less and less. Eventually, it's going to get to the level where someone looking to buy a home or apartment will not be able to afford what they could have been able to afford specifically right now, especially if they are not getting raises at the same rate that inflation is affecting us all. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you're at work and you get a 3% raise every year. Well, just this year, inflation rose by 6%. So that means you are already at a 50% difference. That's one example of how this could really affect 2022. The one thing that I've been hearing quite frequently is that real estate is the best hedge against inflation, and I really wanted to dig into that for a second to say why. Really, what that means is by purchasing real estate, you are locking yourself in at a specific rate, at a specific price, at a specific mortgage for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So no matter how much inflation affects the market, it really won't ultimately affect your bottom line because you're already locked in at your price. So that means no matter how the market is affected, you continue paying the same amount on the regular basis. And if other factors do increase, for example, let's talk about that last example where the person's getting a raise. Let's say they still are getting that 3% raise year over year. Well, that's great because you've locked in this mortgage rate that is staying consistent over time and will only change if you decide to end up selling or refinance your home. So the other factor that is more of a future affecting real estate pricing is interest rates. Even though interest rates don't necessarily affect the seller, I think it is important to understand how it actually affects your buyer and how that might ultimately affect you when you go to sell your apartment. So what do I mean? For every 1% that the interest rates increase, you can basically anticipate your borrowing power to decrease by 11 to 12%. Now again, these two factors are really more future thinking, and again, they affect more the buyer than they do the seller right off the bat. Even if these things do affect us within the next, let's say it becomes a little bit more aggressive within the next few months, the sellers won't see the effect of it until they realize that things are spending longer and longer and longer on the market and people aren't getting the sales prices that they're looking for. Eventually, people will have to drop their prices, or let's say people are going to have to undercut the market if they really need to sell. And if they really need to sell, that's going to slowly but surely get people to start coming down on pricing, which means you as a seller would have to come down on your pricing yourself. Really affecting the buyer, but if the buyer is not making a purchase because of these factors, it's affecting your bottom line as a seller. This is my evaluation on the market pictures that are or are really going to affect people within the next 12 months and potentially longer. I'm super positive and I really like to be, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem for too long, but I don't have a crystal ball and I can't see into the future. So these are things that you do have to consider, and based on that, right now you have as much leverage as I believe you're actually going to have in all of 2022. Realistically, this should not be looked at before you consider your internal situations and the life factors affecting your move. I really probably should have did a video about that first, but I wanted to get this video out to you guys as soon as possible because this is extremely important for anyone who is considering listing their home in 2022. And I really do believe that what the experts and economists are saying might happen, should happen, will happen, what the feds are doing, everything like that, I think it is super important to consider when going to list your home. That's all for this video. My name is Everett Smith with Easy NYC Real Estate, where I make New York City real estate easy for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.